I hope I didn't just get these out of order for you, but if you don't have a book, raise your hand, and Eston will get you one. He needs to be useful tonight anyway. So Sunday night and Wednesday night, we've been talking about ridiculous faith. And I feel like that's where we need to be. Am I on? Okay. I feel like God's got us where He wants us now, but He wants us to show Him that we're committed to Him. And that we're willing to lead and do whatever He wants us to do. Last Sunday night we talked about burning plows and giving up plan B and making a no plan B. Plan A is only following God. Surrendering to what He wants. And then Wednesday night we talked about digging ditches. That was one of my favorite because they've had the strangest command was to dig a ditch with no sign of rain. But as we noticed, when they was faithful, God showed His faithfulness. He supplied them exactly what they needed. And give them a victory in the end. Tonight we're going to get some jars out. Tonight we're going to get jars out. Tonight we're going to see something a little bit different. And I'm hoping this message will minister you in a special way. Some of you coming here tonight, or you may be listening online and you feel overwhelmed. Like there's too much going on and there's no way out. You feel like you can't go on. You don't have the energy and you don't have the time. But I want you to realize it's just because your faith may be low. You turn the notch up on that and it'll change things. If you find yourself empty and too much in one area of life or another, my prayer tonight is God will move on you in a mighty way. I feel like God led me to this series for a reason. I feel like God gave it to us at a certain time for a reason. He's got big things for you personally. He's got big things for this church. But to be a solid team, every person has to be prepared. Every person has to be ready. No team is any stronger than their weakest link. I don't want to be the weakest link. So we've been talking team. There's a reason. Because God's all about unity in a team. Nowhere in your Bible will you see God say, okay, I want you to do it by yourself. He wants unity. He wants you working together. He wants to use you in a big way. But He's got to see your faithfulness. He's got to see how strong your faith is. Tonight we're going to see a whole lot. We're going to learn about a lady that most people don't see and don't realize her name. But according to Jewish tradition, many believe she's the wife of the prophet of Obadiah. Then we would no wonder why she was having financial issues. We'll find out that she had major financial issues to the point that she was going to lose her sons. Obadiah was well known for protecting and providing for 50 or more prophets. So if this was Obadiah's wife, he would have taken all the resources he had before he passed away to help other prophets' family. It was not uncommon for all of the prophet's family to be financially struggling because they was always looking after others. They spent the majority of their lives running, on the run, trying to survive, and it's very difficult to make ends meet. I want you to picture this. She was in her mid-30s, a widow, just lost her husband. No chance of any meaningful employment because of the culture they lived in. Women were unemployable unless they would take a job that most women didn't want to take. She is in a devastating place. She's lost her husband. The creditors are coming after her 2 sons because by law they would take them until they could be released into the year of Jubilee. So she was about to lose her 2 sons also because she had a debt she could not pay. So it doesn't get any worse than this. She finds herself with no hope whatsoever. Some of you may feel that same way tonight, like there's no hope. But there is hope. All our hope comes from Christ. The reality is many of you today are struggling with the same thing. Your marriage may be barely hanging on, and you don't know if you're going to make it. Some of you may have lost it. Someone you love may have betrayed you, lied to you, and what you thought you had no more. You don't know where you're at. Some of you got a child that may be going the wrong way, and you want to help them, and you see it, but you don't know what to do to help them. Some of you may be in a financial situation where you don't know how you're going to get in out of it. And there's such stress that you just want to give up. Others of you may have health issues. You go to the doctor, someone you love went to the doctor, and the only thing that'll change is a miracle from God. I call these graduate level problems. They're big issues. Same place she found herself. I want to look at 2 thoughts tonight. Number 1, when you don't have what you really want, you will discover that God is what you really need. When you don't have what you really want, you realize that God is really what you needed. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elijah, saying, Thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons, to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy home? And she said, Thy handmaid hath not anything in this house save a pot of oil. This woman had a very significant need. She expresses her need to the prophet. The problem here is she could only focus on what she did not have. She couldn't only focus on, I don't have a lot. But what he had done was ask, what do you have? You realize here he never said, oh man, that's a bad problem. He doesn't blow her off. He just asked her, what do you have? And she said, I only have. I only have. She was so focused on what she didn't have that she couldn't focus on what she did have. And that's what's the problem with us now is we focus on, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. He doesn't say, that's bad. He doesn't walk away from her and say, well, okay, I'll be thinking about you. I hate it when someone looks at me and says, I'll be thinking about you. Don't think about me. It does me no good. Pray for me, please. I need it often. If you don't believe me, don't ask my wife. Please don't ask my wife. What we're going to see, though, is he did something very significant for her. He changed her life. by just asking her a few questions. He makes himself available to her in verse 2. All he said was, "What shall I do for thee?" Those are words we don't hear often. I imagine not a lot of people knock on a preacher's door and say, "Hey, what can I do for you?" I love church, but I've learned a long time ago, 20% of the people do the work, but it's really only 5% doing the work. The other 18% are just walking the hall smiling. Taking Snapchat videos that I was here, but my hands never got dirty. It's a problem across every church in America. That's not what he wanted to do. Elisha looked at her and said, "What can I do for you?" Our prayer should be just this every day, and this is the way we should start. God, I'm available for you for your divine purpose. Anytime there is a need, even if I can't directly meet that need, I want to be a channel to minister to that person. We should be seeking his divine will and what he wants us to do at all times. How do I serve Christ? What can I do? We can do just what he did. When you pass someone, you see them, and they need something, or they're struggling, or just if you're having conversation with them, ask them this: how can I help you? And all you did was open a door for God to use you. And let me tell you something, when you open the door and allow God to use you, he'll do things that will blow your mind. He'll work through you that you'll be astonished. Like, God, that was amazing. Then it gets you a little pumped up and you want to do it again. Then you find yourself walking through Walmart looking at Barry going, how can I help you? Watch how you do that in Walmart. You'll be cleaning shelves off for people. Trust me. But what he says to her is, tell me what you have. Let's start with what you have and let God meet the needs of what you need. He'll meet your need through what you have. When she replied that the handmaid had nothing, she was focusing on the wrong thing. Often we do the same thing. I don't have enough money, so I'm never happy. My house isn't nice enough to have a group over, because we all know the Spirit of God only moves on top of granite countertops. God can't move if you're sitting on the ground, people sitting on the floor, right? You know, we can't do that. I don't have what I want, so life doesn't matter. This is probably all ladies, but I did write my wife right here. I need somewhere to sleep after this. She often looks in her closet, and this is exactly what I hear. I have nothing to wear. How many men have that problem at their house? Yeah, it's 100%. It's always a 3-to-1 ratio, ain't it? It never works out. But I want you to know, in her closet, we could clothe an African village. Again, I need somewhere to sleep tonight. I love you, baby. The problem is we're always focused on what we don't have. Always. I'm just as bad to look at her sometimes and say, yeah, I can't, but I always have to tell her, I just can't wear it. She shrunk it. But all we're ever worried about and focused on is what we don't have. This is exactly where this poor woman was. She had lost everything, and all she could think of was the lack of stuff. I believe God's going to speak to some of you and let you realize just this. He's going to start telling you to stop waiting for what you want and start working with what you have. In verse 2, it said, what do you have in your house? Then she says, your servant has nothing except. She was so focused on the first part, the second didn't matter. But what she didn't realize was the second half of that was going to change her life. Except a small jar of olive oil. Small jar of oil. I don't have nothing there except this one little thing. Just this one thing. What is good is a small thing of olive oil. What we need to realize is that back then olive oil was incredibly valuable. Very rare and had tons of important uses. It was used for cooking, lamps for burning. It was used as a moisturizer because there won't no Bath and Body Works. It was used to keep the iron from rusting. It's used for an offering to God. It was used to help anoint people for religious services. It was very valuable, but she didn't have a lot. She just had a little. I want you to realize God specializes in doing a lot with a little. All through Scripture, we see this again and again. Jesus had taught thousands of people, and at the end, everybody was hungry. A little boy came up and could have said, I don't have a lot, but I do have a little. But what he had said was, all I have is 5 loaves of fish. In the Old Testament, when a whole army was afraid of the Philistines because of one man, Goliath, who stared them down, guess who God was? Guess who God used? A little shepherd boy with a little bit of faith. A little stone and a little stone who said, where are you going to come against the armies of a living God? Everyone thinks you're too big to beat. I think you're too big to miss. Somebody duck. I'm taking this guy down. And God used a little boy with a little faith, with a little stone, to knock one big giant down. We need to learn to use what we have, and God will do big things with it. We serve a God who can do a lot with a little. If we just have a little faith, God said we had the faith of a mustard seed, we can move a mountain. Elisha asked, what do you have in your house? Notice never did he say, what do you want? What do you need? But what do you have? God's asking you tonight, I want to use you, but he's saying, what do you have? What do you have? I know what you have. What do you have that you're going to use? We need to stop waiting. We need to stop waiting for what we want and start working with what you have, because God has given you everything you need to do everything he wants you to do. He's given you everything you need. God has taught us to do a lot with a little. Some of you are going to look at what you have and say, I wish I had something else. Or I could do something more, I could do more significance. And God's going to say to you, no, no, no. Stop waiting for what you want and start working with what you have. Who knows what will happen if we start working with what we have instead of waiting for what we don't have. We need to start focusing on what we have and start using it. Number 2, we're going to offer God what we have and trust him to give us what we need. Pick it up in verse 3. Then he said, go borrow these vessels First week we burned plows, then we dug ditches. Now we got to get our vessels, our jars. Borrow these vessels abroad of all the neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. And what thou art come in, thou shalt shut thy door upon thee and upon thy sons, and thou shalt pour out into all these vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. She's told to go get a bunch of jars. All you have to do is with a little bit of oil, but if you'll trust God and pour out what you have, and then put your jar aside, God will refill your jar. Verse 5. So she went unto him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, and who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she come and told the man of God, and he said, Go sell all the oil and pay the debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. When she offered what little she had, God gave her everything she needed. As long as there was an empty jar, there was oil that kept flowing. If they'd have brought another 100 jars, that oil would have never run out. There's more God to go around than we could imagine. He wants to pour so much into you, and it's never going to run out. But you never get more unless you pour it into someone else. We got to learn to disciple those that come in. That's how we pour ours out to someone else. That's how we use what we give. She was given a very ridiculous request to ask her to empty out everything she had and to trust God to provide what she really needed. But that's how God works. When we show him our faith, he will show us his faithfulness. I don't know about how that's going to speak to you, but I want you to realize this. When you take what you have and stop waiting for what you want, you can offer God so much more. God will do something special for you. He said, go get a bunch of jars. Notice he didn't say what color. He didn't say what size. He didn't say what shape. The only requirement he required was that these jars must be empty. It could have been any kind of jar. It could have been a milk jug. It could have been a peanut butter jar. It could have been a butter bowl, because you know those are the best dishes. Yes, ma'am. Only after it's been emptied out. Here's what it needs. God can use any shape, any size, or any color. He just needs you to be empty. We got to empty ourselves of self and allow him to fill us up with him. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 says this. But we have the treasure in earthen vessels. That's what jars of clay were. That excellence or the power may be of God and not of us. What is he referring to? Our bodies. We're clay pots. We're dirt houses. But we're empty jars that he wants to use. He wants to use you in a mighty way. He wants to do something with you, but he's got to have you empty. When we empty ourselves of self, pride, greed, and our own agendas, and come to God totally empty, then he fills us with oil, which always has been a symbol of the Holy Spirit. All of a sudden you realize when what you don't have outwardly, what you wanted, you find out truly that's God's what you needed. We got to learn to trust in him. Once we realize that's what we needed, then all of a sudden he is enough. He's significant. in every single way. You see, when we are weak, He is strength. When we are hurting, He is our comforter. When we're lost, He's our guide. When we're hungry, He's the bread of life, which nourishes us. When you're thirsty, He is living water. When your life is unstable, He's a rock that does not move. We need to realize I do not have what I wanted, so we can discover He's what we need. Every head bowed and every eye closed.